Picture two people. Same company, same floor, same coffee from the same machine down the hall. They pull in almost identical salaries, drive similar cars, live in apartments 3 miles apart. Then one Wednesday afternoon, one of them opens their investment account, looks at the balance, and something shifts. Not loudly, no confetti, no alarm goes off. The number just crossed $100,000 for the first time. And from that day forward, their financial life starts moving differently than their coworkers. Not because they suddenly got smarter, not because the market handed them something special, but because $100,000 does something to your money, your brain, and your entire relationship with the future that almost nothing else in personal finance can replicate. Here's the part that nobody explains. The first $100,000 isn't just a savings milestone. It's the exact point where the rules of the game quietly change underneath you. Most people think of $100,000 as a larger version of $100,000. More zeros, same idea. You saved more, you have more, good job. Put it somewhere safe and keep adding to it. That's the wrong mental model. Completely wrong. And staying stuck in that model is exactly why people who hit $100,000 often feel oddly disappointed. Like the milestone arrived and nothing changed the way they expected it to. Here's what's actually different about $100,000 that has nothing to do with the raw dollar amount. At $10,000 invested, an 8% annual return generates $800 a year. That's a nice bonus, but it barely registers psychologically, and it barely matters mathematically. You're still doing almost all the heavy lifting yourself, month by month, contribution by contribution. At $100,000 invested, that same 8% return generates $8,000 a year. That's $667 a month appearing in your account without you touching a thing, without an extra hour of work, without a side hustle, without a raise. Your money just handed you a $667 monthly raise that nobody can take back, that doesn't require a good performance review, and that grows automatically every single year. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's business partner and one of the most successful investors in history, was once asked about building wealth from scratch. His answer has been quoted for decades because it's one of the most honest things ever said about money. He said the first $100,000 is a beast. You just have to do it. Find a way. After that, you can ease off the gas. Now, why would a man worth billions fixate on a number that was essentially a rounding error for him? Because Munger understood something about compound interest that most people don't internalize until they live through it. Let's run the actual math, because this is where it gets genuinely exciting. Say you're saving and investing $1,000 a month, earning an 8% average annual return. Getting from zero to your first $100,000 takes you roughly 6.5 years. And during that stretch, almost every dollar in that account is a dollar you personally showed up, earned, and chose not to spend. The market is helping, but only a little. You're doing the work. It's slow. It feels unrewarding. And most people quit somewhere in this stretch because there's no visible momentum. But watch what happens on the other side. Going from $100,000 to $200,000 doesn't take another 6.5 years. It takes about 4.5. Same $1,000 monthly contribution, same 8% return, 2 years faster just because you crossed that first threshold. From $200,000 to $300,000, under 3.5 years. From $300,000 to $400,000, less than 3 years. The same $1,000 month you've been contributing since day one is now accelerating the timeline faster and faster, not because you changed anything, but because the base it's building on keeps getting larger. Your monthly contribution stays constant. Your money's contribution keeps growing. At some point, the math tips, and your portfolio is doing more of the work than you are. This is what people mean when they talk about the snowball. But here's something the math alone doesn't capture, and it might be the most important part of this entire video, because $100,000 doesn't just change your spreadsheet, it changes your brain. There's a study I keep coming back to. Researchers gave participants a simple cognitive test, a problem-solving exercise. Before the test, half the group was asked to think about a financial emergency requiring $1,500. The other half was asked about a minor $150 inconvenience. Same people, same test, same brains. The group that had spent 30 seconds worrying about the larger financial stress scored significantly worse on the cognitive test. Not slightly worse, a full standard deviation lower. The researchers described the cognitive drain as comparable to losing an entire night of sleep. Now, think about what that means for someone without a financial cushion. Every single day, some portion of their mental bandwidth is running a background calculation. Can I cover an emergency? Here's something nobody connects to the $100,000 milestone that absolutely should be connected to it. What it does to your earning potential. When you have no financial cushion, your relationship with your employer is fundamentally one of dependency. You need the paycheck. They know you need the paycheck. Even if nobody says it out loud, that dynamic shapes every interaction. You don't push back on the unreasonable request because you can't afford the friction. You don't ask for the raise you've deserved for 2 years because the possibility of a bad reaction feels too dangerous. You don't explore other opportunities seriously because taking time off for interviews feels like a threat to the income keeping everything afloat. This puts you in the weakest possible negotiation position. There's one more layer here that almost never gets talked about, and it's probably the most durable thing $100,000 does for you. To accumulate $100,000, especially starting from zero without an inheritance or a windfall, you had to become a specific kind of person. You had to say no to things you wanted, dozens of times, hundreds of times. You had to watch the account balance sit at $11,000 for what felt like forever, while your friends were spending on things you'd chosen not to spend on. You had to maintain the behavior when there was no visible momentum to reward it. That's not just money management. That's identity construction. And the person who emerges on the other side of $100,000 has demonstrated to themselves, in the most concrete way possible, something that cannot be faked or borrowed. That they can delay gratification when it matters. That they can maintain financial discipline for years, not weeks. That they are the kind of person who builds things instead of just spending things. And here's what $100,000 makes possible that zero savings simply doesn't. Not because the opportunities didn't exist before, but because you couldn't access them. A friend mentions they're starting a business and could use a small investor. At zero savings, you can only wish them luck. At $100,000, you can run the numbers and consider whether $10,000 at the ground floor is worth the risk. The opportunity was always there. The ability to participate wasn't. Your company announces voluntary layoffs with a severance package. At zero savings, voluntary is not actually voluntary. You need the income too badly to consider it. At $100,000, you can genuinely evaluate whether the severance plus a few months runway might be the best career move you've ever made. A market downturn hits and quality stocks drop 30%. At zero savings, you watch it happen and feel vaguely sick about the missed opportunity. At $100,000, you have resources to deploy into the exact moment that rewards long-term investors the most. This is what wealthy people mean when they say money makes money. It's not a conspiracy. It's not that the rich get secret access to exclusive investment.
Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. This sounds great, but $100,000 feels completely out of reach from where I'm standing. And I get that. I genuinely do. If you're starting at zero, 6 figures can feel less like a milestone and more like a taunt. But here's the thing about the math we ran earlier. The difficulty isn't evenly distributed. The first $10,000 is the steepest part of the climb. Because at zero, every dollar is coming entirely from you, and the behavior is new, and it doesn't feel normal yet. By $25,000, the habit is established, and the market is starting to contribute alongside you. By $50,000, you're halfway there, and the compounding is visible enough to feel real. The grind from $50,000 to $100,000 is faster than the grind from $0 to $50,000, even though it's the same dollar amount, because your portfolio is actively helping you get there. The mountain gets less steep as you climb it. It only looks vertical from the bottom.
Here's what I want you to take from this. The first $100,000 is not just a number. It is the boundary line between two completely different financial realities. On one side, you're doing all the work. The contributions are everything. The returns barely register. And the background hum of financial anxiety shapes decisions you don't even realize are being shaped. On the other side, your money has clocked in. The math bends in your favor. The psychological ceiling lifts. The career moves that felt too risky become survivable. The opportunities that were always there become accessible. And the identity you built while getting there makes everything that follows feel almost inevitable. Nobody gives you a plaque when you cross it. Your bank doesn't call. Your friends won't notice. It will look exactly the same from the outside as it always looked. But inside the math, something has permanently changed. And the people who keep showing up, who automate the contributions and ignore the slow early stretch, and refuse to quit before the snowball crests the hill, they find out what's on the other side. That's what you're building toward. Not a number, a different life.